Welcome. Success demands clarity.
You cannot clearly expect to succeed if you do not clearly define your own success criteria.
I'm Kai Gilb,
I'm Tom Gilb.
and we love to help our clients succeed in their projects. Okay, let's get down to it. Success demands clarity. Today, more than 50% of all IT projects fail. This is a disastrous number. This is terrible. And one of the main reasons for that is the total lack of understanding and knowledge of how to clarify the top objectives of their project. So they're moving through into the project and throughout the project with unclear objectives. Not clarity really about where they're going to lead the project. What is success at the other end once they deliver. So it's critical to have clearly quantified, measurable, testable success criteria, the top of any project, to help everybody involved in the project to move towards success together.
The main reason why this is important is that quantified objectives become the foundation for initially deciding anything about architecture, strategic planning, prioritization, and risk management. Basically thinking, how are we going to do this? They then become the criteria for deciding whether the project is in fact moving ahead incrementally towards these goals as opposed to getting off track and needing correction. Finally, they become the criteria for saying the project is done, full payment is expected in contracts and things like that. So clear, quantified, critical, top-level objectives are the foundation for all project management. And we need to do it a lot better.
You know, Albert Einstein said, perfection of means and confusion of ends seems to characterize our age. Now, his age, well, it seems to be Tom's age and my age too. It still seems to be that we're struggling to distinguish between the ends and the means. So what people do is, instead of defining security, an end, they start defining the means to them. They say, okay, we need a password. Or instead of user-friendliness, they start designing the GUI. If you have the requirement as the means, not the end, what happens is you get locked into that means. You cannot, find the different types of means that will get to the actual end. Not only that, you don't even know what the actual end is. So you might end up with the means, with a perfect implementation of the means, a solution, but not succeed, because people don't really want a password or a GUI. What they really want is security or user-friendliness. And what they have in common is that they vary. There's more or less security, there's more or less user-friendliness. And because there's more or less of it, we need to deal with the variation. And how do we deal with the variation? Well, just like we do with other things that vary, like money, like time, we quantify it. So one of the main fundamental things we do to clarify success is that we quantify the values of success. We quantify user-friendliness, we quantify effectiveness, efficiency, we quantify performance. And what we normally look at is the top 10 of any project. We can list that what are the top 10 improvement ideas that define success, and we quantify them clearly so that other people can move to, the other people in the project can move towards delivering those values. Clearly see how much they're contributing and sort of do like an accountant system on the values themselves, on the success criteria themselves.
Okay, so let me give you an example from a real client of ours. When we met them, they spent 8 years and over $100 million, and they were in total failure mode. They never delivered a thing. We took a look at the objectives as set by the CEO for the project 8 years earlier. One of them was simply called robustness, and that's all anybody knew. It sounded like a good idea at the time, except nobody had ever decided exactly what it meant, and I showed them how to deal with it. Stage one, we decompose robustness into its essential parts: uptime, resource speed, testability, etc. I call this Cartesian decomposition. And now we've defined robustness as a set of finite dimensions of goodness. We can then undertake to quantify each one of these and get further definition. So taking the example of uptime, we defined it with a scale of measure that we agreed to. We defined it with a worst acceptable case of 14 days and a goal of 300 days. Now, and we do the same thing with all the other things there. So this leads to a pretty clear picture of exactly what is expected by the project and the ability for the project to define whether they're moving towards these goals or not. Okay, so they finally got on that track and they finally succeeded, but it was a big Titanic ship to turn around.
So how can you implement this principle in practice? Well, what you can do is you can quantify the top level of your project. So the top objectives. So if you're responsible for a project, make sure that the 10 most critical objectives are clear, and by clear I normally mean quantified. For all the values, all the things that vary, you need to quantify those objectives. Now this also holds true if you are working on a sub project or a sub project. If you're just building the one little calculator in a big bank system, then you can also take a look at that sub project as a project and look and ask yourself, well, what are the 10 most critical success factors for that thing I'm building, and define those. What also you can do is establish a policy in the company. So this might be something like this, that you have a policy and you might have a list of policy items. One item could be that all critical objectives must be 100% clear, quantified, measurable, and testable. So if anybody is to write any objectives, any requirements, they have to follow that policy. They're not allowed to say highly efficient, super modern, state-of-the-art robustness. They have to quantify, like Tom showed, quantification of robustness.
So finally, let's summarize. The main idea is that we have to quantify objectives so that all parties can synchronize their efforts around those objectives and get gradual feedback whether they're moving towards the objectives in their planning, in their projects, and finally be able to declare success as a result of having met agreed value objectives by stakeholders. Management has to lead here by showing clear expectation of quantified objectives at all stages. People have to learn how to quantify anything they really value, and people have to accept the fact that their success is determined by reaching those quantified ideas. Everybody in all situations should challenge, question, and offer to help to make objectives better.
So, success demands clarity.
You cannot clearly succeed and if you do not clearly define your success.
I'm Kai Gilb.
I'm Tom.
And our mission is to help you succeed. Thank you.